So the Israeli parliament just passed a law that is set to weaken Israel's Supreme Court. But what does this mean for the future of Israel's most far-right government and Israeli society? So here are 3 key things you need to know. Firstly, what was this bill that passed? The bill would see the removal of something called the reasonableness standard. That was the Supreme Court's ability to block government decisions it deems unreasonable, and that is now gone. A good example of this was the blocking of the head of the ultra-Orthodox Shas party, Aryeh Deri, from becoming a minister because of his criminal convictions. But this bill passing is just one part of the far-right Israeli government's controversial judicial overhaul plans, which apparently seek to restore power to elected officials rather than the judiciary. Members of parliament passed this reasonableness bill by 64 votes to 0 after opposition lawmakers left the parliament. And up until now, critics have said the bill opens the way for corruption and improper appointments. So what's the reaction been to this bill so far? So this bill passing goes against months of protesting both inside and outside of Israel, which have seen some of the biggest protests in Israel's history, all going against the government's judicial overhauls. And protesters have said the judiciary changes are taking Israel towards dictatorship. Even opposition leader Yair Lapid said he will now appeal to the High Court to block the bill. And even Israel's usual allies have criticised the bill, saying the bill should be scrapped completely. And lastly, Netanyahu himself is on trial for corruption, so the judicial overhaul could enable him to evade conviction or have his case dismissed, which would lead to further crisis between the government and courts. So for a country that promotes itself as the only democracy in the Middle East, it sure doesn't seem to be listening to its people.